I'm going to give it to you. I'm just going to sit here, but I'm still here. Thanks, Major. As the Major said, we're still working very closely with them. I'll give you a little bio on myself and the people that are here with me. I'm Gary Yandura. I'm the new chief in Brookhaven. This is a lot better turnout than we had. When was it, two weeks ago or 3 weeks ago we had? Yeah. So we appreciate that. The other good thing about it is your neighborhood association, we're getting requests for other neighborhood associations. So we actually told them, and I hope you guys don't mind, but he says, you guys are having one tonight. Come on down and see what goes on there. And we're trying to set them up. One was on Osborne Road, I think, that we're setting up. A little bit about myself. I was a deputy chief in a suburb of Chicago. I left there after 24 years of service. Then I was chief in College Park for 10 years. I went to Hiram to take a little break from College Park for 3 years. And I'm here. This is an exceptional opportunity that I looked at to start a department up from the ground up where we could actually build it with the best people that we could get. We've had over 500, 600 applications so far. We could pick the cream of the crop, and I think we're doing it. We have about 11 or 12 supervisors already in the process of being hired. With us today I have Ron Freeman. He's a deputy chief. Ron's got 24 years of service with Forsyth County. He was in charge of the precinct there. And Sergeant Brandon Gurley, who came to us from Sandy Springs. He was also a sergeant at the Paulding County Sheriff's Department. He was a public information officer. He's the one who's going to be attending most of your neighborhood meetings and things like that. A little bit about what we've been doing is we met with new chief of DeKalb, Chief Alexander, actually 2 days ago. We're forming a partnership with them. We met with the Communication Center for DeKalb County so we could work together with them. We also met with, work closely, and I'm good friends with the chief from Dunwoody, chief from Doraville. Chambly I have to meet a little bit, you know, because I don't know him that well yet, but I'll get to know him. And I'm a firm believer in partnerships. You know, some of the things that Jim brought up as far as crime prevention tips and things like that, everything's out there. I know a lot of things we discussed was reacting to it. I like to be more proactive, where the people aren't going to be coming into town to try to break into the houses. We want to keep them out. And all you're doing is really displacing them. So try to keep them all out and send them to Atlanta or send them to College Park or you know, some of the ways to do that is basically you got your burglar alarm system signs like the Major was saying. You've got cameras, make the cameras visible. Turn on different lights if you're home. How many times have you gone by people's houses and seen in the driveway newspapers piled up, the mailbox opened up? I mean, I've done it myself a couple times, and I feel foolish when I do it because I've been lucky so far. You know, identity theft. You leave your mail in the mailbox. You could be home or at work that day, come back, find out, you know, you ordered some checks or whatever, and the checks are gone. That's a perfect way where you're getting identity theft going on. There's a lot of other scams going on too, so just keep that in mind. With that being said, you know, some of the things we're going to try to do to be proactive down the road, we look at being operational probably within a couple months. We ordered cars. As I said, we got supervisors. We're going to be interviewing officers and detectives pretty soon. So we look to get the ground running. We're going to start probably with a little less than we would like to be more proactive. But as time goes on, we're going to be more proactive. And some of the things that we're looking at is any departments that I worked at before, we had citizens police academies where you get involved, where we can help you out and you see what we're all about, and we can work together better. We have neighborhood or extra watches at the houses. Say if you go on vacation or whatever for a couple days or whatever, you call up the police department. This is a program that we'll institute. We'll check your house for you. And the officer will actually verify when he checked it. So if something does happen, we'll be able to tell when it happened. Another thing that I always offered was we do crime prevention surveys. So if you move into a new house, we'll send somebody over. He'll just do a survey of the house basically, make recommendations as far as deadbolts, what kind of windows, bushes, should they be out of the house and things like that. And one of the things that we were talking about was the detective's gone, but I know I got a call from one of the residents in Brookhaven. I think it was off of Ashford Dunwoody. I couldn't remember the exact address. But this happened Saturday morning about 2:30 in the morning. The man and wife were at home with their 7-year-old kid, and they heard noises in the garage. Well, the wife went out to the garage first. The husband went to get a gun, and they found a guy in the car. Well, that same guy was actually in the house, took a phone and a couple other things off of a table. So the homeowner actually kept him at gunpoint. So if that answers your question about what you can do to protect yourself. The gun kind of scared him, so he didn't. And luckily, he wasn't armed. But he was already in court, and he had to bond. And that's a lot of the things that we're dealing with that I don't really care for, but it's a law that we have to abide by too. Is sometimes the laws are made, you know, giving the bad guys an easier time to get out. You know, the bond on him, I think, went down to $2,500. And that's set by the judge, and sometimes judges have to abide by the state laws that are there too. And we talk about juveniles. Juveniles laws to me are way too lenient for them. You know, if 4 times is too much for me to have them out on the street. But with that being said, I'll open up for questions or whatever. Yes.
I know since you've been a police chief before, you probably have had a lot of experience with people in certain neighborhoods or certain areas saying that, you know, their problems are the biggest. And I don't want to say that, you know, our problems are bigger than Ashford Parks or whatever other neighborhood in Brookhaven, because I know there are issues everywhere. But when you guys get when you get everything up and running, I think it's fairly obvious that the Buford Highway corridor is a fairly large area of concern. Is it safe to say that you guys will be dedicating a lot of resources to that area, because, you know, we obviously back up to it?
Actually, right now, the CAB's providing us with statistics and numbers and calls for service and things like that. We're going to try to break down the city into zones, whether it be 4 zones or 6 zones. We're also looking for locations where we could set up like a precinct. And we'll set it up so that the residents, I mean, your neighborhood, even the apartments on Buford Highway, if there's incidents going on there or whatever, if we're looking for some place to donate, a lot of times like a Target, sometimes the apartment complexes will donate space. We'll put up a precinct sign, Brookhaven Police, and we'll put an officer there for 2 hours, certain days a week or whatever, and say, if you got issues, give us a call or stop by, and the officer's here to talk to you. You know, other than that, we're going to put police officers where they need to be. You know, 2 of our main goals in the police department is response times, number 1, and number 2 is visibility. So,
I've mentioned this several times, and I'll say it again. This is sort of my 911, or his response is based on heat mapping. 911 is every time you call, it turns up the heat a little bit more. So, you know, if yours is the most important neighborhood because it has the most calls from 911, it will get the service. If Ashford Park is slow that week because we haven't called, we don't get the service. So, you know, unfortunately they operate, as you heard several times from the major, they have priority calls, and so they operate on a priority basis. If your calls are high, their service is high. If your calls drift off, they're going to, you know, tend to go off somewhere else because it suggests that you may not need their help right now. So, you know, I keep harping on 911, but that's what drives their service calls, is how many 911 calls have they had in that area in any given period of time.
and we're also in a process, just like the major said, with DeKalb County, of setting up our ordinances, so we'll have solicitors' permits. Actually, we just got a machine that does the pictures and things like that. It's going to be a little while before we get that going, but, you know, eventually we will. We have court that's in session. We're still working out some of the kinks on that. As far as reports, we're going to be convenient. The city's looking at it, and I'll let the mayor or councilman address that, but we're looking at a location right now that's centralized, actually, near Peachtree Road, for the police department, for City Hall and everything. So it'll be convenient to everybody. We like it centrally located, and it'll be a quicker response time too. If you don't know where we're at now, we're in Dunwoody on the other side of Perimeter Mall, which is kind of hectic. But we plan on being there, I think, July sometime.
Yeah, well, it's a little premature, but we are moving City Hall and the police department back into the city. You know, when he's up and running, he'll be operating out of Brookhaven. He won't be operating out of the temporary space we have in Dunwoody, which we knew we were going to be there for a year or less, and it looks like it's going to be a year or less if things sort of proceed as we work. But needless to say, when he starts out, his first crew will roll out of a location here in Brookhaven, not a location in Dunwoody.
Right. And as the major said, my wife and I went around and we tested all you folks too, and you failed the test on that one. We sold our home in Hiram, and we're in the process of trying to find something, so we were driving around and no one called on us. So actually we were driving around for about 2 hours, all throughout the whole city.
It's because your wife looks honest.
Anything else? Yes.
Is the catch and release program for juveniles a state law, or is it the California law, or? what
It's
is
a
it?
state law for the point system that he was talking about.
It's a state law?
Yeah. And other states have the same thing. Sometimes there's difference in ages. It could be 16 in some states or 17 in other states. Some states, I think it might even be 18 now.
Does Brookhaven have any latitude to
No,
make any
we've got to
adjustments?
follow state law. Juveniles are protected. For the most part, we can't release their pictures. If we get adults, here's one thing that we did use before that actually works. If you have somebody that's caught in a burglary, he's an adult. As soon as he's arrested, his mug photo is accessible to anybody, and it can be published. What a lot of the stores do, if they pass people that pass bad checks, if you go to Walmart or some of the smaller stores like the gas stations or whatever, they'll blow up a big picture of the person and put it right by the cash register. A lot of times that works. I'm a big one for deterring things before it happens, and if we could do that, anything we could do to stop that from happening. Yes?
I work at the Capitol, and I have information for the State Representative Mike Jacobs, because I know they just passed juvenile justice reform. I don't know what's in there for that. I don't know if it has anything to do with that.
Unfortunately,
I don't,
it made things laxer, and they just passed.
So if you want to call Representative Jacobs,
Well, they just passed the criminal reform bill too, which actually decriminalized, this didn't happen yet, but they're trying to decriminalize traffic laws, which to some extent, that's probably a pretty good idea. We need to go after the more serious crimes.
Right.
But on the same token, you know, some of the things that are going on shouldn't be going on. It's frustrating to the officers. I mean, the cabin, when we get our officers going, it's real frustrating when the officer locks up somebody and he beats them back to town. And I dealt with the same thing in College Park when I was there numerous times.
Are there any consequences for the parents of these kids? I mean, after a certain amount of time.
Yeah, we could look at that. They have to be picked up a couple times, and then you put the parents on notice.
Just like they always get something done, you know, they start getting in trouble.
And that's a lot of our problem today is kids are left, their latchkey kids are left at home, no parental control, things like that. So, you know, like I said, we're going to try to be proactive. Give you an example, when school session starts, you know, next year, and when it's out this year, we'll try to have cars out in front and slow down traffic before we end up with somebody getting hit. I know the city's doing a lot of things on Beaufort Highway as far as pedestrian traffic. We're trying to get up some pedestrian walkways and things like that. I mean, I couldn't believe when I came here, it's like chicken in the roadway. People trying to get across the street there. It's 6 lanes you got to run across, so. Yes?
This is not so much about the crime, but since you mentioned traffic, I wanted to ask you, when the Brookhaven Police Department does get up, are we going to be able to have police officers out in front of Asher Park Elementary School in the mornings when traffic is so bad? There's been so many almost incidents.
Actually, I went to career day there. It was yesterday. And I saw 2 DeKalb officers there. I'm not sure if the school, we got to iron that out. I met with the principal for the first time yesterday, so I always try building up relationships with the schools, and we'll continue to do that.
I'm sure Mr. Irish speak for the traffic calming in front of the school.
There's a gentleman there, Swen, I think.
Spin.
Yeah.
He's my co-president.
Okay, he's phenomenal. He's called me up 2 or 3 times, and he said it's a little late to start this year, but next year, at the beginning of the year, we'll try to get things organized.
Although it's ironic, Officer Dane is a motorcycle officer that hopefully none of you met, but he's introduced himself to a few of the morning carpool folks, and with a written invitation. But yeah, he goes out there periodically. Caldwell Road is the worst, but
Calms it down for a day or 2.
Exactly.
As soon as he's gone.
Exactly.
And see, that's what, we brought up proactive policing or whatever. What stops people from speeding or doing anything wrong is seeing a police car there, so. Anything else?
I got something, Chief.
Yeah, Mayor.
I know you're frustrated with a lot of the catch and release like you're talking about. A lot of I'm the mayor, I'm J. Max Davis, by the way. Hello. There are some things you can do. With my experience as an attorney, what they talked about before about showing up to court hearings, that's very, very important, because in the Brittany neighborhood, we started our security patrol and then gone on to Linwood Park Security Patrol. And it was mentioned earlier about tracking cases through the system. What we want to do in Brookhaven, we want to have a lot of citizen volunteers, and we talked about this today, where we can have people in your neighborhood come and volunteer at the police department, help the police with tracking crimes, tracking data, getting things shuffled back and forth. But if you track you have a volunteer in your neighborhood, one person a week, to track crimes, and then make sure you know when their court dates are. You can have a relationship built with the DA. You can go to court. The cases are all on an online justice system, OJS, DeKalb OJS. You can track any case on that online easily. Go to those court hearings and make sure those judges aren't letting people off with $2,500 bonds and $3,500 bonds for felonies. Because letting people out on bonds like that, they're a danger to the community. And you really need to put heat on the judges, because the judges are elected by you. And they will respond when they start seeing people in the courtrooms, and the DA will recognize you. They'll start saying, they'll start upping their bonds and doing things of that nature. What they're trying to do a lot of times with the smaller bonds, they're trying to keep the jail from being too crowded. But don't let them use your neighborhood as a way to keep the jail from being crowded. Make sure you are there to represent your neighborhood and follow these cases and put pressure on those judges not to go soft on these folks. Another thing, if you have a juvenile who commits a crime and they have a prior record, you can sue the parents if the parents have any type of insurance for negligence. And if your child beats up my child, you can sue that child's family. So it's the same thing with crimes. There's a liability there. So there's also criminal negligence, or neglecting a child is also a crime. So you start putting heat on the DA to start handling these types of things, you can start making a difference. But it's going to take you getting a little more involved in tracking things. We can put you in touch with the patrol in Linwood and Brittany to let you know how they do it, but it's because it's very successful. We have, anytime somebody gets let out of jail, or there's emails going to the DA, to the judge's office. This guy's got, we had a guy let out not long ago who had shot somebody in the head, and he had warrants, and he was walking around the neighborhood. And there's no reason for him to have been walking around the neighborhood with warrants. So you can make a difference with being involved with your police department. We're going to be community based, and our cars are going to look different. Our uniforms are going to look a little different. So before we get out, we'll have on the website what the cars are going to look like, what the uniform is going to look like, and what the profile is. It's going to be a very different profile. And if you just don't feel afraid to come to the police department, to the city hall, and say, I want to volunteer and do something, and we'll find a spot for you. So.
I think that's probably a good segue is what Mark and Sarah were talking about, not to cut you off, but I know they had a couple of things and suggestions to the neighborhood. Y'all have been sort of going back and forth, so I think what we'll do is we'll step aside now and let the neighborhood side, which is, as you've heard a couple of times tonight, is the most important part of this meeting, and we'll be here to answer questions or whatever for the duration. But
if I could just say one quick thing, sure. and that's just be patient with us. I know the DeKalb County is doing a great job, and we're looking forward to working with them. We're getting a lot of calls from people. We got one here, people speeding 50 miles an hour and 15-mile-an-hour zone on Drew Valley, things like that. We're getting calls all the time. Don't hesitate to call, but right now for the next 2 months until we get fully operational, all we're doing is passing the information on to the DeKalb County. So,
911. 911.
That being said, like I said, the difference between us and DeKalb County is DeKalb County, they got a lot of territory to cover, and Brookhaven's only a small part of it. Where I think we're going to be able to do a little bit better for you on community-based service is we're going to have to stay within the confines of Brookhaven. And so we'll be there, and we'll have a number of officers just assigned within the city limits. So.
One more question.
Yeah.
The number I've heard is that you're going to have 55 officers initially. I don't know if that's an accurate figure, but...
There's a lot of misleading information out there.
Okay.
We're looking between 54 to 58 officers that's sworn. That includes myself, the deputy chief, detectives, and sworn officers. We're looking probably to have anywhere from 7 to probably 11 people on the street at one time in uniform. And that doesn't count. We're looking at eventually a community-based group that's going to be our troubleshooters to handle problem areas, traffic complaints, and things like that. So I think it's going to work out very well.
Another thing to do is they will actually the deputy chief and the chief, they'll get in the car and patrol sometimes. So it's not, they're not gonna be any desk jockeys in Brookhaven.
Actually, we've been out, the mayor finally swore us in about 3 weeks ago, so we're out there, we could do some police work, but we're just out and being the eyes that you guys are trying to help us do right now too, so, and help the cabinet.
And to answer that a little further in that question, the number that he's quoting is this year's number. We've asked for a 5-year plan, and obviously he's got to get up and get tested and see where he's at. So this year, because we are a startup city, we hope we're running like a company, but startup city, our budget isn't as robust as we'd hope. Next year it will be larger because there's some revenue that's being collected for us this year. It won't come due until next year. So what we've asked Gary to do is look at a 5-year projection. That's a starting point, but we want to make sure that we get his needs recognized over the long term so that we can factor those into later budgets and we're not playing catch up like some of our other cities are. So we've asked him to be proactive and looking beyond just the startup and what long-term his department goals are.
And the council and the city manager have been phenomenal as far as, get what you need.
And the number will be set, it might end up being 54. We don't know until they get out there and start patrolling. They're not going to know exactly what the number needs to be.
We're trying to get
64, could be, we don't know until
We're trying to get calls for service. We're in line, actually we're researching right now. We've got a pretty good idea on what we're getting for a mobile data system, a records management system. We can start collecting calls for service, what types of calls, where they're at, and all that kind of thing, response times too. To me, it's important that, when you call and you want the police, that even though it might be a 3-minute response, it's going to seem like an eternity to you.
Chief, if you tell them about once you start and then you start servicing and being in communities more and you'll see more police, in the first 3 or 4 months when you see crime stats go up, it's because, a lot of the times it's because your people are calling when they wouldn't have called before. So it's a phenomenon that happens.
That happens with most startup cities. Dunwoody had the same thing. Sandy Springs had the same thing. So you're going to see a spike because there's going to be more crimes reported because you're going to be seeing more of us. And expect more, and I hope we're going to give you more.
So like when you have when my car got broken into the 4th time, calling for 911 just didn't even think about doing it. Called later to get a police report, but they don't know because they weren't going to come out. So if people know the police are going to show up and come, people are going to start calling lots more. So you'll start getting cat in the tree calls and you'll start getting all kinds of stuff.
That's the fire department.
They'll call you, believe me. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.